And how can we actually communicate? What are the ways possible and what to be careful about when we do it? So myself, I'm a researcher full-time at the University of Ljubljana, but I'm always involved in communicating animal research via different editorial teams and also via EARA. So I've learned a lot from EARA workshops and so on, but today I would only like to present you the basic things for the communication of these things, of this field of science. And I would touch the rule of the 5 W's. So the why, what, who, and how, and when to communicate to be the most efficient. So if we touch the first question, why? We have to ask ourselves, why do we need to communicate? What is our goal? Do we just want to inform people or to actually educate? Or are we advocating for something? And this why question is also related to who we are actually talking to. If we only want people to understand and to make our experiments transparent, then we are actually reaching out to the public. But if we are reaching to the professionals, then we are actually seeking for any kind of collaboration and sharing information. And that's the whole other way to do the communication. So what we want to communicate is actually one of the biggest questions here, because this what needs to be presented very simply, very clear, and the focus of the message needs to be presented and instant when the reader gets to it or listener. So here I have two examples. You can either use it's not working with. You can either make videos or infographics or leaflets like this that I've made for tea time. And here you see less text, more pictures. Recently, QR codes are really popular and easy to use. And the colors are also important, but we'll talk about the design later on. So who we are talking to? This is another question. We firstly need to identify the key stakeholders for our messages to go through. So that is why we also adapt the tone and the format of how we communicate. Whether we do it for policymakers, we make flyers, but for general public, it is better to have to use social media and similar forms. Now we get to the how. So there are different kind of channels and tools you can use to communicate one similar thing. The difference is actually of how far you want your message to be reached and who you want to be read from. So you have mainly 4 types of channels to use. Websites, of course, official communication strategy of every institute. It's like a central hub of all the information, but there's so much to read. People get lost on it. And then social media appeared for years now. They are quick messages, but they usually reach more or less general public. To reach official professionals, you need to do press releases. But press releases can be dull, and also social media and website are all accompanied with some engaging content. So you actually need this 4th type of channel, videos and infographics. Here at the bottom, I have a conclusion written up, which actually embraces different kind of channels at once and how you boost your delivery of the message. So if you join the press release, with a nice infographic, and then also share this on LinkedIn, then you actually reach a broader collection of stakeholders, not only one. So this is kind of a tactic you should think about when you want to deliver your message broadly. If we have a look more into detail into these 4 channels, you can see they are quite different from each other, either in content and in design. So websites, which will be more described later on in Bob's talk, websites include detailed info. And what is important here in the content, that you keep an eye on using SEO keywords. Those are the keywords that internet browsers use when people search for some kind of content. So if you put appropriate keywords in your website, then the reader will definitely find you and the information you have. On the other hand, social media have short, engaging texts. Here, we don't use SEO keywords. Actually, here we call them hashtags. So hashtags are really, really utmost important to use in social media. Without them, your message reaches, I don't know, 10% of what you wanted. With hashtags, but appropriate hashtags, you can reach bigger networks, because that is how actually the system works. Then further on to press releases, they need to be in a special structure and very factual, and you need to put some references in the statements you make there. And for the videos and infographics, well, how do you tell a story about your research will be also described in the last 2 talks of today's webinar. So I won't go too deep in it, but I would just want to mention that making videos and images and also diagrams and using logos is very important, maybe more than you think, because these are the things that capture reader's eye among all the text and everything. So this links also to the design of those 4 channels. Website needs a clean layout, so information can be found really fast, while videos and infographics should be of high quality, and they're linked to social media because they are making eye-catching visuals. And yes, probably the most dull from all of those here are press releases that don't actually need such fulfilling design because they are formatted and more standardized. And yes, the last question, when to communicate? It's not like whenever, you know, timing is important, especially during special events, open days of institutes, worldwide diseases days, and so on. On these timings, the communication should be maximized. Also, what time during the day you post matters. The statistics have shown that if you post something during the working hours in the morning or in the afternoon, you get a much greater impact than if you post during the night or very, very late in the evening or over the weekend. So you have to keep in mind those good times when you can catch the most numbers of the readers. And yes, of course, now we get to design. Design is very, very important when making websites and infographics and some engaging logotypes. Branding here, when you communicate, is really important. You should always use your institute logos, or even sub-laboratory logos. You should use your consistent color schemes. That's how people quickly recognize you and maybe reach out for your posts easily. And just stick to the design you choose and never exclude it for any kind of channels you use. Here's another example for a conclusion and also invitation from the tea time. There's a flyer we made for our next training school. It's exact, very low in text, but full in graphics. And we always use our color scheme of the tea time. And never forget, of course, to include all the funding and financing opportunities that you're collecting. And actually, yeah, that's the main message I want to deliver to you today.